Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Concession Stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and welcome to the review of the fifth and final season of Prime Video's satiric superhero show, The Boys, which called it a day on May the 20th, releasing its final episode, allegedly. I mean, I think The Boys proper is over, but we already were announced to have a spin-off prequel series which will have Soldier Boy and his minions. Vault Rising, which is coming out I think either next year or late this year. But there are also rumors of other spin-off shows to kind of continue the Boys legacy. But as far as The Boys, it is done. It is over and done. I'm a big fan of this show. I make no bones about it. Love how this show takes social commentary and throw it into a superhero universe, and that's the thing with superhero properties altogether. It's all fine and good. We all love guys and gals running around or flying around in tights and capes, fighting the bad guy, punchy, smash. That's all fine and good. But after a while, you get tired of all that. You need to reinvent the franchise. And the superhero genre is one of those genres where you could do a lot with, other than the fact like stopping the giant beam from the sky or, stopping the big bad from taking over the universe. There's a lot more storytelling you could tell with these characters, not just the Boys, but overall DC, Marvel, all the big ones, all that. And I think for the most part, at least recently, the superhero genre has been doing that. You think back to Captain America, what was it? The Winter Soldier. That wasn't a real superhero movie. That was more of a spy thriller. And most recently with Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts wasn't so much of a superhero movie. It was more of a exploration into mental health illness. And I love how you can take real world events and real world issues and incorporate it into the superhero genre. And the one who does it the best has always been The Boys. And that's more of a political, looking at it from a political stance. It has been this show, especially in this current administration here in the United States. And so I really love this show. So I was of two minds of the final season. Going into the season, I was a little on the fence with it because after 5 seasons, yes, it's time to land this plane. You milked this Homelander story dry. It's really not nowhere else you can go with it other than what they went with it in season 5. And also, we've pretty much have gotten character arcs of all of our main characters that we, follow on this show up to this point. So it was really nowhere else to go. So it was time to kind of put this to bed. Now, where the skepticism came in at is, how were we going to put it to bed? How were we going to land this plane? Is it going to be satisfactory? Or do they have enough material to stretch for 8 episodes and come to a satisfying end? I'll say this. Season 5, the final season, has my favorite The Boys episode of all time. And I would argue that episode is one of my favorite episodes of television of all time. I love the structure of it. I love the way the storytelling was told in it from this one shot. And I'm talking about episode 5, which was entitled One Shots. It felt like a comic book one shot type deal, but it was in one episode and we followed 3 different characters, and it was done so well. And the storytelling was done so well, and the performances in that episode was amazing by those actors and actresses. I I think the season peaked at that point for me. And nothing else could live up to that point. And so, getting to the spoiler alert, getting to the end, it wasn't as satisfactory because I was on the summit of Mount Everest with with episode 5, and nothing else could, I don't know, nothing else could compete with episode 5 to me. I absolutely loved it. Now, I didn't hate this season. I see a lot of online hate towards the final season of The Boys, and I can understand. Honestly, I can understand why a lot of fans, a lot of people didn't like this season, and I see it. But for me, I was satisfied. For me, I enjoyed it for the most part. You know, pros outweighed the cons, and so I didn't really have an issue with the season. Was it anticlimactic? Yes, it was a little anticlimactic, even though we got a satisfactory end. You know, Homelander was vanished. He was defeated. But I didn't feel nothing. I didn't feel nothing at the end of the season. But I'm sounding like Debbie Downer. Let's go over my positives of season 5, the final season of The Boys. Let's go over the positive. Then I'll hit on some negatives, and I'll grade this final season. And so, starting out with episode 1, which was entitled 15 Inches of Sheer Dynamite, which I reviewed. I reviewed when the season premiered. I liked the first 2 episodes. I thought it was a good jumping off point for this season. It kind of set up an epic conclusion to this story. I was super excited. A-Train dying in that first episode, being murdered by Homelander. I thought, man, this is going to be a brutal season, which it was. It was brutal, but I thought there would have been more of a sacrificial thing going towards the end, you know, as we come to this conclusion. It just set up something that really didn't really come to fruition, if that makes any sense, towards the end. But the start of the season was spot on perfect. I was all in. After the second episode, when we opened up in episode 3, which was entitled "Every One of You Sons of Bitches," this was the episode after Soldier Boy kind of revealed that he was immortal. He couldn't be killed. The virus couldn't kill him. Nothing could kill him. And so let me pause and deviate for a second here. Soldier Boy was the MVP of this season. Soldier Boy instantly became my favorite character on this show. What, a couple of seasons ago when he premiered, being portrayed by Jensen Ackles, who, you know, we all know from Supernatural, and loved him on that as well. He's an awesome actor, awesome television actor. I wish he was on film more. You know, I wish he would get more shots carrying a film, but it's all good. You know, stick with what you know. He's killing it on television. I love him in every show that he's in. But he was amazing as Soldier Boy. Really carried this show. He carried this final season, even though he had absolutely nothing to do with the conclusion of this episode or this season, which is another downside. But I said I was going to focus on the positives. But anyways, awesome, man. From that point on, from episode 2, really, till episode 7, it was the Soldier Boy show. And he ran with that ball and scored so many times. Oh, bro, super happy to have him on this show. Hate to see that he didn't have an impact at the final conclusion of the show, but it is what it is. Once we get to episode 4, this is when Homelander develops this God complex. This is when we start traveling into this white nationalism that we experiencing here today in the United States. This Christian nationalist crap that is just being indoctrinated here in the United States. Lucky me, for being a black man, but it is what it is. Uh, this this really, bro, this hit home. It all hit home, but this really hit home. I'm like, man, when did they come up with this? Are they writing this the week of the release? Now, according to the showrunner, they've been wrote this final season, so it's crazy how they are somewhat prophets in the way that they wrote this and knew that this was the direction and that this country was heading in, and this show really just shined a mirror on them. Now, a lot of people who don't like the show, this is the reason they don't like the show, because they see themselves in the show, you know, and that's why they get mad. So it's funny in that sense. But Homelander develops this God complex, and this is when he begins his hunt for the V1 compound so he can become immortal like Soulja Boy, his father. And so we go on this trip throughout the season for a few episodes, and I think at this point I was like, okay, I like where this is heading, but it was dragging. It drug way too long. That should have been wrapped up in 2 episodes at the longest. But it dragged for maybe about 3 or 4 episodes. And by the time Homelander got the V1, he didn't really care. You know, I was like, well, all right. You know, okay. And we were so close to the end of this season when he got it. It was like, well, we're not going to get a satisfying conclusion here because we're not going to see him in full God mode. And we didn't. We didn't. To be honest with you, he was weaker after that. And I'm talking mentally, not physically or anything, but he didn't really showcase his God complex, you know, physically. Verbally, yeah. Mentally, no, because he was still struggling with that. He was struggling with all of the other things that were going on around him, with nobody really truly liking him, loving him, worshiping him, following him. It just got exhausting at a point. So I think they stretched that out way too long. And by the time we got to the climax of that storyline, you really didn't care. It was like, okay, whatever. He got the compound now. And so we get to my favorite episode of all time. And this was One Shots, the 5th episode. This was released on April the 29th. This episode was perfection. It was absolute perfection. No notes on this episode. Everything was perfect. We get the character of Firecracker, right? Firecracker, I never really looked at as a villain. I just looked at her as a whatever, you know. Didn't like the character. Nothing to do with the actress or her performance. You're not supposed to like the character. So the job was done. I just didn't like her. And this episode made me like her, which made it even better once we got to the end of this episode. And so she's being asked by her reverend, her former reverend, before she joined the 7 and all this here, that he needed help with his church because his church is being vandalized by these Homelander followers, you know, and they're leaving the church and starting to follow behind Homelander. And he reached out to her to help, to assist him. So because he knows that, you know, you were raised in the church, you know better, you know that we're not these radicalists, you know, that follow Starlight and trying to overthrow Vault or the government or anything like that. And so she betrays them. She ends up betraying them on her little broadcast show, her what is that Alex Jones show? I forgot the name. Don't know. Don't watch it. Don't care. But anyway, that variation of that, and she bashes the pastor and all this other stuff, and because she's now indoctrinated into this Homelander cult, and so we get that. Then we get a black noir little section of the episode, and he's attempting to join this theater group. which is hilarious, because we get that director Adam. He comes back and I'm sorry, I don't mean this unprofessional. I don't mean to laugh, but I can't. Every time I think about it, I just burst out laughing. Of Adam, his death was probably the funniest thing I ever saw on television. But anywho's, the black noir and deep bromance or lack thereof is an issue up to this point, because the deep is trying to get the upper hand in being Homelander's guy, being his right hand man, and the deep kind of backdoored black noir by bringing him oh my god, what's his name, Gene Carlos Exposito, his character's name. He brought him to Homelander, but Black Noir had him first. But he brought him to Homelander instead to try to get brownie points. So this upsets Black Noir, of course, and he's trying to join this theater group. The Deep finds out, so he kills Adam by having eels while Adam is on the toilet doing a number two. He has eels crawl up his butt and just demolish his. And the way Adam, look, that alone makes this season watchable. It was so funny, man. I watched that episode 3 times. This is the only episode I watched multiple times this season. I went back and watched it because it was so funny. But anywho, you have that. You have the boys. They're developing this virus that would kill all the Supes. Butcher, he states that Annie and Chemical had to take the V1 after they found it. Otherwise, they would be killed by the virus. Then we get Sage with Ashley, and she asks his help to stop her Homelander by obtaining the V1, and so he can prevent her plans for Supes and humans to kill each other. This is Sister Sage's master plan here. She just wants to have peace, and so the only way she could have peace if everybody tears themselves apart and she hides out and read her books and try to ease her mind. Then we get the reunion that all Supernatural fans have been waiting for the longest. And we have Soldier Boy and Homelander going to Los Angeles to talk to Marathon or Edgar, who has been keeping V1. It's or stealing it. And it ends up being Jared, whatever his last name is. I can't remember how to pronounce it. But anywho's, who plays the other Winchester brother on Supernatural. They finally unite on screen again on this show. Just a little tidbit. Eric Kripke, who is the showrunner of The Boys, he created Supernatural. So it was kind of easy to get them all back together. Jeffrey Dean Morgan was on this show. He pops up later on this season as well. You get Cass. He pops up in this episode as well. He's one of the guys that's at Marathon's mansion, along with just a plethora of cameos. We have Seth Rogen there, who is an executive producer on this show. McLovin is there. Will Forte is there. Who else was there? Oh my God, I'm blanking on the cameos. But anyways, that's how good this episode was. I didn't even care about the cameos. The little celebrity cameos. But anyway, they're there. Marathon tries to turn Soldier Boy against Homelander. Soldier Boy refuses. He kills Cass. At this point, Marathon chases him around. While chasing him around, he's killing these celebrity friends that's there. Seth Rogen and all of them. All of them get just ran through, literally, by Marathon. Soldier Boy then interrogates Marathon, and while he's interrogating him, Homelander kills him by stepping on his head. But we get a confession from Soldier Boy to Homelander at this moment, which I don't know why he told him at this moment that he was sleeping with Firecracker at this moment. And this kind of, even though Homelander knew because he smelt them on her, but he didn't have confirmation. He finally got his confirmation here. Another confession that he told to Homelander was that Firecracker had her doubts about his deity, about him being this god. And what made this such a powerful thing right here, Firecracker she's of faith, at least she was, of strong faith. And she turned away from that to join this cult. And we got to see the display of struggle that she was going through in this episode, throwing away her faith. And she literally, figuratively and literally, threw away Jesus, the little Jesus figurine that she had in the office. She threw it away. And that was the symbolism of her just turning her back on the faith. And just as she did that, Homelander comes home and kills her for doubting his divine glory, I guess you can say. And I thought that was a powerful, powerful thing, and when it all ended, I'm wondering where can we go from here? Where can this show go from here? And nothing compared to that. Up to that point, nothing else for the remainder of this season compared to this. And I think that's a main reason why this season fell flat for a lot of people, at least for me. Now, there were some good things that did happen, but nothing to that level in episode 5. But there were some good things. We got a cameo from Samuel L. Jackson, not a physical cameo, but he voiced a shark in episode 7 who told the deep, don't come back into the water. But in typical Samuel L. Jackson, I should say, fashion, the Frenchie death at the end of episode 7, it was supposed to have an impact. Unfortunately, it didn't for me. I wasn't a Frenchie guy. Didn't like the character, and for all due respect, didn't too much care for the actor who portrays him, if you know his backstory. And so I'm not a big Frenchie guy. And so I know this was supposed to have an impact, but it didn't. Now, don't get me wrong. I felt it on the chemical side. She was devastated by it, and I love her character, but it didn't have that big impact. And that brings me to episode 8, the final episode of this season and of this show. We open up with a Frenchie funeral. So immediately I was like, okay, I don't care. I'm in don't care mode. And it took a while for me to shake that off. And I honestly don't think I did shake it off during my viewing of the final episode. I didn't care. It didn't have the impact. It just didn't. I know that was intended to have an impact, but it didn't. We finally get Ryan returning when Homelander tried to coerce him to come back to his side, come join him. He's immortal now. He's a god. And, of course, Ryan refuses. Sage, she provokes Chemical to test her powers now, and it works. And being as though it worked, Sister Sage lost her powers. She lost her abilities. Now she's as dumb as everybody else. That's her words now. And so that was pretty cool. But the problem I have for a character like Sister Sage, who was set up to have such a huge impact on this show, and once we get to the end, lost my powers, deuces, I'm going to an amusement park, hit the door, and we don't see her no more. Made no sense to me. It was so disappointing. One of the biggest letdowns of all time. I don't get it. I don't get it. You had nowhere else to go with it, and you could tell they had nowhere else to go with these characters. And so it was like, all right, we're just gonna end it. This reeks of we should have ended this show last season. They should have put it to bed last season, but they stretched it out for another one. And this season felt like it was stretched out, like they were trying to make it stretch for an entire season just to tie up loose ends. And there's still a lot of loose ends, but some of your major ends were tied up. And the biggest one, Homelander. Homelander, he gets blasted by Kimiko, losing his powers. And man, Antony Starr. What else can we say about Antony Starr as Homelander? The man is amazing. He's amazing in this role. But his best performance as this character was at this moment when he lost his power. When he lost his power and he begged for his life. He begged, I mean, everything. He offered fellatio. He offered everything. Don't kill me. He just, for the most powerful being on earth at this moment, to be just a coward, a pure coward, begging for his life. Cool, bro. That was awesome. Now, should it have been more grandioso? Yes. This is where the show kind of lost me. It should have been bigger. It should have been more epic, and it wasn't. And that's where I was upset by it all. I felt like this performance was wasted. It was wasted. Yeah, they kind of cheated a little bit and had the news camera still rolling in the corner of the office, so the whole world saw it. But no, man, it needed to be in front of people, and it wasn't. And so that's where I was a little thrown back by that particular moment. But as far as the performance of Antony Starr, it was amazing, man. And finally, Butcher got his revenge by impaling him with a crowbar and busting his head wide open. And that was the end of Homelander. So you would think that would be the end of the episode. No, we still had some ends to tie up. And Butcher tries to convince Ryan to stay with him because they were hit with the blast too. So they lost their powers. So he tries to convince Ryan to stay with him, and it'll be him and Tara the dog, you know, just like your mom would have attended. And he refused because Ryan was like, yeah, I know what my dad was. I know what Homelander was. He was evil. But you're not a good man either. You know, I don't want to be with you. I don't want to be around you. And he left. So that was it for Ryan. Butcher goes to be with Tara the dog, and Tara's died. So that was that. Butcher is alone. Butcher has nothing. He has no one left to love. There's no more purpose. His sole purpose in life was to kill Homelander for this entire 5 seasons. That was it. Now we've achieved that goal. He has nowhere else to go. And so he takes the virus and he goes to Vault, and he's going to release it. He's like, well, forget it. You know, I'm still not satisfied. You know, the vengeance wasn't enough. I have nothing else to fight for. Let's just wipe them all out. Now, he did have a point. You know, eventually another Supe will try to be Homelander. So it's not over. That's his whole logic, and he has a point, but not like this. So Huey, he follows him there, and they fight, and this was a good moment. This was probably a better moment than the Homelander moment, to be honest with you. And I felt this moment mainly because of the performances with Jack Quaid and Karl Urban, but it was these characters have been there from the beginning, tooth and nail, literally going through hell together. And now we have arrived at this moment where there's no other choice. Either release the virus or kill Butcher. And he did it. He shot Butcher before he released the virus. And I felt that moment. That was satisfying to me. Didn't want to see Butcher go, but when you sit down and think about it, yeah, Butcher had to go. Butcher wasn't a good guy. He really wasn't. He didn't care about his friends. He didn't care, so-called friends. He didn't care if they sacrificed their lives or whatever the case may be. He didn't care as long as he got what he wanted. He was a despicable human being. And so he had to go. And I thought that was a really, really good scene. Far better than the Homelander climax, in my humble opinion. So as the episode wraps up, we see that Annie is now pregnant, and Huey is running this audio and visual store that is a front for superhero work. And Annie, pregnant and all, with Crocs on, still is fighting crime, and that's how the episode ends. Chemical goes to France. Mother's Milk renews his vows, taking Ryan with him, which was kind of odd. But this is how it all ended. I guess happily. I will say this was an unsatisfying end to the show, but at the same time, I'm not mad, but I just wanted more. But I can see where a lot of people would be upset, and so I can't get mad at that. Like I said, I've seen all the hatred online. Understandable. It's completely understandable. I'm not even going to fight you on that. I would agree with probably 99% of all of the points made for why people don't like this season of The Boys. But I found enough pros to be satisfied, but I do wish it would have been a little more epic. It deserved that much. But I will give the final season of The Boys, which is on Prime Video, a letter grade of a C+. Yeah, I was hoping for more. Really hoping for more this season. Yeah, we got some fan servicey moments. We got some cameos. We got some nostalgic reunions and all that other good stuff. And one completely perfect episode. But it wasn't enough to say that this was a satisfying end to the show. But I would like to know, what did you think of The Boys' final season? What did you think of the entire 5-season run of The Boys? Were you a fan? Did you follow it from the very beginning like me? And are you satisfied with the end? And are you looking forward to Vault Rising, which comes out, I think next year, I should say, on Prime Video? Let me know. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for all of the reviews of The Boys, all the entire run, whether I was recapping the season or going over an episode, whatever the case may be. Thank you so much. Don't forget, this ain't the only thing we do here on the KB Radio Network channel. Come and join us. I want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.